A common question with the Empower console is calibration. What is it? Why do I have to do it? How do I do it? So we call it more specifically tilt calibration. And what that is, it relates to the power sensor. So I talked earlier in a different clip about the power sensor is mounted to the side of the brake here, and it's measuring the angle of the brake. So the easiest thing to do is think about the power sensor like a scale. If you want a scale to be accurate, you have to zero it out before you step on it. Well, it's the same thing with the power sensor. It's measuring an angle of the brake, but for it to measure an angle accurately, we need to tell it where zero is, essentially. And that's, in a nutshell, what tilt calibration does, is we tell the brake where zero is, in this case where all the way up is, and then from there it measures angle and it knows where the brake is once you set it like that. Like a scale, it periodically has to be recalibrated. If you move the bikes around and it's on a different level of surface that changes the angle of the bike, it should be recalibrated. When we do the tilt calibration, as I mentioned, we're telling the brake where up is, where the very top is. So it's important as you set up, the first step after you've got the sensor awake and you're ready to calibrate, you want to make sure that the brake is all the way to the top. Your resistance is all the way off, and that will ensure you do it properly. If you hit calibrate with the brake part way down, what will happen is you'll get wattage values that are very low for the amount of exertion you perceive on the bike. So you'll be working really hard and the console will tell you you're getting 20 watts. And that's most likely because it was calibrated incorrectly. All you have to do is go back in and calibrate it correctly, and then it should read fine. So to do a tilt calibration, the first thing you have to do is turn on the console, push any button to turn it on. Then what I need to do is make sure that the power sensor is awake. So to conserve battery life, the power sensor actually goes to sleep after a few minutes of non-use. So whenever you come to a bike that hasn't been used in a while, the power sensor will be off. And it wakes up by sensing movement in the sensor. If we're here to do a calibration and we're in maintenance mode, the easiest way to wake up the power sensor is as follows. You want to spin the wheel. You want to spin it, and you can spin it very slowly, but the reason that you do that is the power sensor, when it wakes up, the first thing it does is check for RPMs. Are there RPMs being read? If there are, it stays awake. If it does not sense RPMs, then it goes back to sleep. So I need to have RPMs being read by the console when I wake up the power sensor. So I have the wheel spinning. The easiest thing for me to do in maintenance mode to wake it up, to ensure there's enough movement of the sensor, is I just tilt the bike slightly to one side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for a few seconds, and on the console, in the top right in the wattage box, I'm going to wait for that to go from dashes to a number. Once I have a number up there, I know that the power sensor is awake, and now I'm ready to calibrate.